Hello, I'm Brian Fox. Welcome to I Hate Rock Music. And I did a video uh, just a few minutes ago that is posted now by Simply Saucer, and I really like these damaged art bands. And one of the greatest damaged art bands um, in the world probably is a band called Debris. And like a lot of these bands, they kind of operated in a vacuum and came out of Chickasaw, Oklahoma, and existed from 1975 to 1976, and really great damaged art rock, and kind of like Simply Saucer as well. They probably would have been considered more of a straightforward garage rock band, proto punk band, but then they used a lot of studio techniques and a lot of electronics and stuff to fuck it up even more and give us quite a collage of damaged art rock. And there's been some comparisons to MX80 Sound, and I can understand that. MX80 Sound were obviously far more accomplished as musicians and composers as well, and had more of a metallic edge. So the connections to Debris, I think, are a little misguided. But with bands like this, it's really hard to find examples of something that you can relate to. So anyway, let's get into the band a little bit. Chuck Ivy on bass, Oliver Powers on guitar, and Johnny Gregg on drums. So just a trio with all of them doing some vocals and all of them contributing with the analog synthesizers and electronic effects that permeate the record. And unlike Simply Saucer, they're pretty well rehearsed. And so I would imagine growing up in a little town like Chickasaw, Oklahoma, all they had to really to do with their time is sit around and smoke a bunch of weed and practice. And so there's quite a vast amount of material. We have the original album, and then there's probably easily 15 to 20 bonus tracks that are available on the CD that's out now. But originally, they got an opportunity to go in and do a quick recording, and they were obviously very well rehearsed when they went in there because they did it in 10 hours. Everything is first take. They did it in 2 sessions, and so to whip out that amount of material in 10 hours is pretty astonishing, but in any stretch of the imagination. And they pressed up 1,000 copies, so super rare. But it got out there into the scene, 75 and 76. Apparently, they were invited to come up and play Max's Kansas City, and they never really made it. In fact, just like Simply Saucer, they never really got any gigs outside of Oklahoma. And in fact, a legend has it that they only played 4 live gigs in their entire career. Too bad. It'd be really interesting to hear what they sounded like live. Of course, live they would have been stripped down to just the guitar, bass, and drums lineup. Uh, Somehow, maybe creatively integrating some of the synthesizers and things like that. But so the album is now called Static Disposal. But at the time, it was actually just the name they gave to the label, and the album was just called Debris. But now the album is actually known as Static Disposal, and it really is superb. And they really, once again, they started in '75, but by the time '76 rolled around, punk was really happening, and they really, even though they were more of an art damaged uh, psych garage lo-fi proto punk band. They really fit into the punk scene really well, and of course became legendary around a lot of other musicians looking for that kind of stuff. The album came out in April of 1976, and so the songs are generally pretty short. There's not a lot of what you'd call jamming or improvisation, but there is a lot of weird, fucked up noises, really kind of cracked arrangements. Um, it's kind of generous calling them complex arrangements or idiosyncratic or odd time signatures. They're just a weird band, and I think just organically, um, odd time signatures just kind of happened because they just approached music so weirdly. And once again, to have a band that's just guitar, bass, and drums that can actually break outside of that formula and create something special and weird. Got to give my hats off to them. And it's recorded pretty well. I kind of discussed that as a lo-fi recording, but that's only because it was done at a small studio in Oklahoma. But it sounds really good. It ended up being recorded pretty well, and it doesn't sound like they spent much time mucking with it, other than doing a lot of interesting processing in the studio that adds another layer. So unlike Simply Saucer, they definitely were a band that used the studio as kind of a fourth instrument. But you get a lot of material because, like I say, the songs are pretty short and there's not a whole lot of jamming or anything like that. But they're all solid players, and they pull it off really well. So they, as I mentioned earlier, they probably had a lot of time to practice. So they got really good at what they do, and what they do is really interesting. Definitely one of the most legendary of art damaged rock bands of that era. And there were quite a few of them around as it happens, but I think Debris are definitely one of the more memorable ones, and it's awesome that we have this record. And the cover is really cryptic too, which really adds to it. You can definitely lump them in with bands like Para Ubu. I think they have a lot more kinship to Para Ubu than MX80 Sound. Um, so there you have it. There's not much other things to talk about with Debris. There's not that much information. You can find all the fine details about their creative processes and what they went through in the liner notes of the CD. And then if you're lucky enough to get one of the original 1,000 copies of the LP, you're a lucky man indeed. I still don't have an original. I remember when it came out and I saw it in the racks, but I didn't get it, unfortunately, and that was my last opportunity. So I still don't have an original copy of the Debris album. But I do have the vinyl reissue as well as the CD, and love having it in my collection. It's definitely something I reach for more often than not, and it's definitely a really good listen. And even today in 2026, so here it is. Oh, it's an anniversary. So here it is, 50 years later, and the record still sounds wonderful and weird and idiosyncratic, and just an all-around great addition to the annals of weird rock history. So there you have it, Debris, as usual. The link's posted below. It's not going to be for everybody. I know I have a lot of fans that watch my channel for prog rock, and a lot of hard rock, and a lot of 60s and 70s classics. But this is definitely something that should cross over to those type of fans, at least if you're as diehard as me. I definitely like a lot of stuff, even though my bread and butter is mid to late 60s and then the first half of the 70s. I definitely embraced the whole punk aesthetic and was really into punk, and certainly when we got into post-punk with bands like Wire and the pop group, I definitely like a lot of that kind of stuff too, and Debris really fits in with that very, very, very nicely. So check it out. Static Disposal, Debris. Good name for the band too, because there's a lot of debris flying around on this one. I'm Brian Fox. Thanks for watching I Hate Rock Music.